Okay, welcome to the walkthrough for the booster assignment, right, for chapter 5, spatial distribution of tropical rainforests and mangroves. Okay, so this walkthrough will guide you to reevaluate what you have done in your own answers and to also see if you have got most of the content that's required down. Okay, bear in mind this is just a walkthrough. This is not a mark scheme. Mark scheme are things that we used for marking, so I will not be using the mark scheme to show you this, so you got to listen very carefully. Okay, so for the first question, this is basically a guide to how we can do a describe question. Describe can be used to describe a lot of things. Can be a graph, can be a picture, can be a photograph. In this case here, the stimulus figure 5.1 in your textbook, this is the chloropleth map of different types of forests that you can find. Okay, things like the tundra, things like the tropical rainforest, things like the temperate coniferous forest. So when you're doing a description question like this, for one part A, this is basically a rough guide of what some of these coverages can be. Okay, so you always tend to come up with a general overall distribution, right? In this case of the coniferous forest, where exactly do you find this? Are there reference points in the map itself that you can hold on to identify clearly the areas or the parts of the map that you are trying to identify as locations for this type of forest types? So when you talk about the temperate coniferous forest, they're found mostly where? Okay, is there a latitude point that's given in the map? You are given the equator, the Tropic of Cancer, as well as the Tropic of Capricorn, right? So if that is the case, which ones are we looking at? It is above or is it below? Is it the Tropic of Cancer or the Tropic of Capricorn? From that point onwards, are we moving towards the equator or are we moving towards the North Pole? Right? So this is how we phrase your overall description if you're looking at a chloropleth map. Now, bear in mind, chloropleth map can be used in multitudes of ways. So it can be away from forest as well. It can be also be tested in part of your chapter 4 in terms of sustainable use of water. We could give you areas that are known to have been using water more sustainably, and then ask you to describe the distribution of these areas or distribution of areas that do otherwise. Okay. Secondly, after you've given me the overall descriptor, right, what are we looking for? Then we're looking for specific areas where you find the distribution of these things, right? So if you look carefully, the guide here for the second phrase, okay, second phrase here is they are found on the continents. So I've highlighted continents is something that you should know, right? So you can use continents as a known anchor point to illustrate where you find this type of forest. So to guide you through, we actually gave you 3 blanks. So in the map itself, there are instances of coniferous forests found on Asia, Europe, as well as North America. This is important because this gives me, within the general statement, which is your initial statement, the first statement in your paragraph, right, you tell me where I can find them in terms of latitude. Then the second statement comes in and gives me details. Where exactly are we looking at? Okay, finally, you can look at a small section of found. This is your anomaly, right? So always bear in mind, sometimes the data that is given, there is abnormal data, there's data that doesn't seem to follow where the points originally that you're looking at are. And this is not wrong. It's just sometimes there are other conditions that lead to the sourcing of these things in these locations. Okay, so keep this in mind. Right, then this is the final portion here. So small section already found on the southwestern tip on the continent of South America. Now, you may be thinking, why exactly do I pick this particular portion out then? Okay, because when we're looking at coniferous forests, right, generally they are in the northern hemisphere. Okay, generally they're in the northern hemisphere. But this portion of coniferous forest, that's this little bit that's found at the southwestern tip of South America, it doesn't conform to our initial statement of general latitude boundary. Okay, it is not above the equator, it is not above the Tropic of Cancer. Okay, it is actually below the Tropic of Capricorn. So this is something that I would use as a way to highlight an anomaly. So keep in mind, always start with a general description, move on to specific locations that you can find what you are trying to describe as a distribution of whatever it is you're talking about, and if there are occurrences of anomalies, use clear indicators to show where these anomalies are. Now, this case here, we are looking at rainforest and you are not given data. So if we were to swap this around and this becomes a distribution question that deals with data-driven sources, for example, I give you a graph and there are numbers, there are readings, then you have to return the readings to us. You have to process the readings. Has it increased? Increased by how much? Okay, or it has increased from how much in which year to how much in which time frame again? So these are things that you have to keep in mind. So with that, when you go on to do at question 1b, question 1b actually deals with, oh, sorry, this one is a bit different. Question 1b, I think the updated version shows a distribution of tundra. Okay, so if it's tropical rainforest, so be it. If it's tundra, so be it. Similar style, general descriptor of where can I find this. Okay, general description using our latitude lines. Right, is it around the equator? Is it above the equator? Is it above and below the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn towards the poles? Is it strictly near the polar regions? Right, so this is my general descriptor. If you're talking about the polar regions, then which continent can you find it? Okay, is it only Antarctica? Can you find it in the other continents as well? Okay, so if you're looking at the tundra one actually, let me edit this for a minute. If you're looking at the tundra one, you look at page 102 and 103 of the textbook for figure 5.1. Okay, if you're looking at the tundra, is the grey one, right? If you're looking at tropical rainforest, it would be the one of the darker shades of green, not the darkest, the second darkest shade of green, right? So similarly to the example above, the one where you had blanks to fill in, okay, a general description, you also found on which continents, specific areas, and are there anomalies for this? Okay, so if you look at the tundra one, actually there are no anomalies. Tundra is very, very clear. It is only at the extreme north and the extreme south of the earth. But if you're looking at tropical rainforest, then you may be able to find a chunk of it that doesn't really belong to where the initial description was. You may want to highlight that. Now moving on, for C, right? C is actually a very straightforward question on evergreen, right? So if you have a explain question, I will need specific terms, geographical terms. Okay, if there are geographical terms used in the explanation, right, you need to remember these sort of information and you need to explain. Okay, so where do you find these tropical rainforest plants? Okay, which location base? What is so unique about this place? Is there a lot of nutrients? Is there a lot of sunlight? Is there a lot of rainfall? Or is there no sunlight, no rainfall, and no nutrients? Because these are reasons that will lead to the end point, which is why these plants here are evergreen. So first and foremost, you need to tell me what evergreen means. Next, you need to tell me where you find these kind of trees, what's so unique about the location, and what's the link effect then. So this idea of evergreen trees must come with an understanding, or you must be able to show us that you have an understanding that there's no need to shed all the leaves at the same time. This is very important, right? There's no need to shed all the leaves at the same time. They do go through a leaf shedding cycle, but it is not simultaneous. It's not during one season where they have to face a sudden drop in nutrition level, so they have to conserve energy, like those in temperate regions. So evergreen, right? Once again, where do you find these? What's so unique about this place? And how does these things, the unique characteristics of this place, the tropical region, equatorial climate, how does this help these plants stay green throughout the year? Next. Next one is a very, very, very simple question. 3 layers of the tropical rainforest, right? So this is hard memory. You must be able to know which layer, what's the name for the layer, what kind of a height range are we looking at in terms of that kind of layer. Okay, so A, B, and C. This one, I don't want to go through this. You should be able to see, refer to your textbook or your notes and come up with the answer itself. But more importantly, with that, you can also be asked to describe layers. Okay, I think you've practiced this somehow before, right? Describe layers that you find in these this tropical rainforest. So once again, the guide here, what kind of what kind of trees are we looking at when you want to describe what is the dominant label that is given to this type of trees in this area, because you have three clear layers, right? So after you talk about naming the tree itself, what's so unique about them? What kind of height range are we talking about? Okay, and what is one special characteristics of this kind of tree? So if you're looking at layer A, right, layer A will be the emergent layer. Emergent layer here, the emergent trees, right? They're found here. They grow up to what kind of a height? Please insert. They stick out above the rest of the rainforest. Why? Because they want to look special? No, right? Because they need to seek out more sunlight. Okay, so to aid their growth, this is their adaptation. They grow super tall, right? There are other adaptations that have been they have to develop so as to support this tall growing endeavor. Yeah, but in this case here, you can deal with the first layer of adaptation, which is they are super tall. Okay, to reach this objective. Similarly, describe layer B, right, using the scaffold that's provided in the first part here, right? Okay, of describing layer A, you can deal with identifying the type of trees. Okay, what is the general label? Just now we were talking about emergent trees in layer A. So when you look at layer B, what kind of trees are these? Right? What kind of height do they grow to? And what's so special about these trees? Is there something special, something unique about whichever species that is within this category of canopy trees, right? What happens? Okay. You can talk about, of course, I think most importantly, if you look at canopy trees, the most important characteristic is the interlocking crown. So this crown layer, when it interlocks, what does it do? What does it block away? Okay, because that has an impact on the lowest layer. Okay, so once again, if you haven't realized by now, the once with the fill in the blanks, these are some sort of a basic scaffold for you to follow if you're doing a describe question in this. The following question is the blank one so that you can develop and write the whole paragraph out yourself. Okay. Finally, let's look at the adaptation style questions. So adaptation style questions, what are we looking for? We're looking for two basic things. Number one, are you able to identify the adaptation, the correct adaptation that is shown? Okay. Secondly, are you able to make a link between why the plant needs to have this adaptation to survive? Okay, or and to thrive in the area that they live in. Keep this in mind. This adaptation process, right, is not just about what the plant has grown, has evolved to have, but why does it need to evolve this thing? Okay, that's very, very important. So for example, figure two is this one over here. This is buttress roots. So these are the buttress roots of the tree, right? What do they do for the tree? What help does it do for the tree? Okay, so it keeps the tree upright, keeps the tree straight so that it does not topple over, does not fall over, doesn't collapse in the wind, and they can grow up to 5 meters above the ground surface. So once again, it's a general description identifying what it is, give us a general description of what the functionality of this adaptation is, right? 1 or 2 sentences, depending on how detailed you want to be. Okay, then of course, one other special detail that you may want to mention. Okay, so the second part here, figure 3 is an adaptation of the leaf, right? So if you look at it very carefully, is a drip tip, right? So figure 3, what does it show? Tell me what it shows, the term itself, then tell me what does it do. Okay, what does drip tip do in times of rain? Why does the drip tip need to do this in times of rain? Okay, is it only to so that the leaves don't hold water and doesn't topple over? That's one very possible reason. Is it also because you don't want to have the water stuck on the leaves and then you have the growth of fungi and bacteria, and as a result the tree gets affected? That is also possible, right? So these are all possibilities that you should have listed down in your answer to make your answer a complete answer. So basically, this booster exercise goes through the practice of describing questions. Okay, gives you, for those of you who really don't know how to start, right, you look at the first part of each of these questions. It will give you a guide as to what you at the very least need to present when you're faced with a describe this question. Okay, so hopefully this helps you in your final prep for your end of year exams. Gentle reminder, please look at the email, because there was an email that is sent out that shows the entire coverage of the EOY exam. Please do not prepare for things that we are not testing. Okay, and bear in mind that the EOY scope changes. There is always some variation because the scope and pacing of your lessons is always going to be different year on year, right? So if you're looking at past year papers, please be very sure that those questions address the topic area that we are testing you as well. Okay, good luck.